안녕하세요.
At the grand headquarters of Kang Group, where the hallways gleamed with sophistication and gazes, were as cold as the company's owner, Kang Ji-hoon, the routine followed an impeccable rhythm. Employees rushed past, carrying stacks of documents and keeping their eyes glued to computer screens. No one dared to step out of line until Lee Sua. Sua, a hard-working and newly hired secretary, was still struggling to adapt to the rigid corporate environment. Having been used to simpler jobs, she felt the weight of working for one of South Korea's most powerful conglomerates. The freezing air conditioning, the sharp looks from executives, and the relentless pace made her heart race with every new task. But nothing would compare to what was about to happen. With trembling hands, she carried a towering stack of reports when, in a moment of distraction, she collided into someone. The papers slipped from her grasp, scattering across the floor at Kang Ji-hoon's feet. The silence that followed was deafening. Ji-hoon, known for his cold demeanor and perfectionism, lifted his gaze from his phone, his brows furrowing at the chaotic scene before him. His impeccable suit remained untouched by the accident, but his patience was already wearing thin. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" His deep voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. Sua, stunned, quickly crouched down to gather the papers. "I'm sorry, sir. It was an accident." Her voice trembled slightly. She avoided his gaze at all costs, the gaze of a man whose mere presence made others shrink away. The murmurs of her colleagues echoed down the hallway, a warning of the grave mistake she had just made. Instead of reprimanding her harshly, as everyone expected, Ji-hoon merely observed. There was something different about her. Unlike the others, there was no deceit or flattery in her eyes, only fear and sincerity. It was a rare expression in his world, where everyone wanted something from him: power, money, status. But this woman, she seemed like she just wanted to survive the day. Ji-hoon let out a quiet sigh and bent down, picking up one of the papers before she could. "Be more careful next time," he murmured, handing it to her. "Now, move aside before you cause another disaster." Sua, breathless, gave a quick bow before stepping away, her face burning with embarrassment. But she didn't miss something unusual. Ji-hoon's gaze lingered on her longer than it should have, as if for a fleeting moment he was curious. And just like that, without realizing it, she had captured the attention of the most unreachable man in Kang Group. Since the incident in the hallway, Lee Sua had done everything in her power to avoid any further encounters with Kang Ji-hoon. The fear of losing her job so early on kept her focused, but fate seemed to have other plans. Ji-hoon, on the other hand, couldn't ignore her presence. No matter how much he tried to keep his distance, his gaze involuntarily searched for her in the hallways, in the meeting room, in the company's cafe. There was something about her that intrigued him. One afternoon, Ji-hoon was reviewing important documents in his office when a glaring mistake caught his attention. He frowned and pressed the intercom. "Send Miss Lee Sua to my office." Now, Sua felt her legs go weak when she heard the summons. What had she done wrong? Taking a deep breath, she entered the office, keeping her head down. "Yes, sir?" Ji-hoon lifted his eyes, observing her for a moment, before sliding a document across the desk toward her. "This report is incorrect. Were you the one who reviewed it?" She picked up the paper, her eyes quickly scanning the lines. Her throat went dry when she spotted the mistake. I did review it, sir, but I must have overlooked it. I'm so sorry. I'll correct it immediately." Ji-hoon leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Interesting. You seem competent, yet you're making such basic mistakes. Is something wrong?" Sua hesitated. No one had ever bothered to ask if something was wrong. "No, sir. I'm just trying to adjust to the company's pace. I promise this won't happen again." He held her gaze for a long moment, as if trying to decipher whether she was telling the truth. Finally, he let out a sigh. "Take this and fix it. Bring it back to me before the end of the day. And next time, trust your work more. Doubting yourself leads to mistakes. Sua nodded quickly and left, her heart pounding. She wasn't sure if that encounter had been a warning or an encouragement. But one thing was certain, Kang Ji-hoon was starting to notice her more than he should. The buzz in the halls of Kang Group was more intense than usual. The company's annual gala event was approaching, and everyone was talking about the grandeur of the celebration. For Sua, however, it was just a reminder that she didn't belong in that world. As a simple secretary, her presence wasn't required, and that was a relief. But everything changed when, at the end of the workday, the head of HR handed her a golden envelope. President Kang has requested your attendance at the event. Your presence is mandatory. Sua blinked in surprise. President Kang? Yes, himself. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. It will be an important night. That night, Sua tossed and turned in bed, trying to understand the reason behind the invitation. Was it a test, a trap, or just a formality? Either way, she couldn't refuse. The day of the event arrived, and after much hesitation, Sua found a simple yet elegant dress and made her way to the luxurious hotel where the gala would take place. The ballroom was breathtaking, with chandeliers shining like stars and tables adorned with rare flowers. She felt out of place but took a deep breath and stepped inside. That was when her eyes met Kang Ji-hoon's. He was flawless in a tailored black suit, holding a glass of wine while speaking with a group of investors. But the moment he noticed her arrival, he shifted his attention and walked toward her. You came. His voice was low, almost a whisper. Sua inclined her head in a slight bow. It was a difficult invitation to refuse, sir. Ji-hoon offered a faint smile. Good. Enjoy the night. From today, many things will change. Before she could ask what he meant by that, a female voice interrupted. Ji-hoon, I finally found you. It was Seo Minna, the daughter of one of the company's shareholders, with sharp eyes and a smile that never quite reached them. Sua felt a chill run down her spine, realizing she might be stepping into a much bigger game than she had ever imagined. The glow of the ballroom light still lingered in Sua's mind, but it was the tension between Kang Ji-hoon and Seo Minna that unsettled her the most. Since that moment, the atmosphere in the company had felt different. The exchanged glances between her and Ji-hoon had become more frequent, but also more dangerous. The CEO, always cold and calculating, was now showing a growing interest, something that had not gone unnoticed in the halls of Kang Group. What Sua never expected was to be summoned to the boardroom the following morning. The top floor of the company was a place where few dared to step, reserved for decisions that shaped Ji-hoon's empire. As she entered, she was met with a long table filled with shareholders, and at the center of them, Seo Minna and Ji-hoon. Glad you could join us, Miss Lee, Seo Minna said, crossing her legs with confidence. I'd like to clarify a few things. A chill ran down Sua's spine. What would you like to know, Miss Seo? The woman smiled, but her eyes held an icy gleam. Your relationship with Ji-hoon. Rumors are spreading throughout the company, and as his future wife, I need to understand if there's something inappropriate going on. Sua's heart stopped for a moment. She cast a quick glance at Ji-hoon, who remained silent. The CEO, who always had control over every situation, now seemed to be letting her handle this on her own. Swallowing hard, Sua straightened her posture. There is nothing inappropriate. I am merely an employee of this company, fulfilling my duties. Seo Minna let out a soft chuckle. I hope so. After all, Ji-hoon has much bigger plans than to be distracted by a secretary. The room fell into silence for a moment. Then Ji-hoon finally broke the tension, his voice firm and authoritative. If Min is done with her interrogation, I have a company to run. Miss Lee, you may return to your post. Sua gave a quick bow and left, but as she stepped through the door, she knew this was only the beginning of the chaos to come. Since the tense boardroom meeting, Sua had been trying to keep her distance from Ji-hoon. She knew the relationship was impossible. He was a billionaire CEO, and she was just an ordinary employee. But despite all her efforts, Ji-hoon seemed determined to ignore that barrier. One night, while reviewing overdue reports, Sua heard firm footsteps echoing through the empty office. When she looked up, she saw Ji-hoon standing at the doorway, hands in the pockets of his suit. his gaze intense. "Why are you avoiding me?" he asked directly. Suah tightened her grip on the papers. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm just focused on my work." Ji-hoon shut the door behind him, walking toward her desk. "Min, doesn't decide my life. Neither do the shareholders. Do you really think I'm going to follow a destiny I didn't choose?" She swallowed hard. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that your family, your company, everyone expects you to be with someone of your level." Ji-hoon leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a whisper. "And what if I don't care about that? What if the only thing I want is you?" Sue. Ah's heart pounded. The man in front of her wasn't just the ruthless CEO of Kangroof, was someone willing to risk everything for her. But before she could answer, the door suddenly burst open. It was Ji-hoon's father, Kang Do-hyun, his expression severe. "So it's true." Ji-hoon turned to him, his face hardening. "Father," Do-hyun crossed his arms, "you're about to throw everything away for this woman?" Suah felt the weight of the situation crashing down on her shoulders. It was time for Ji-hoon to make a choice, and she feared what it would be. The silence in the room was crushing. Kang Ji-hoon and his father stared at each other like two warriors about to enter battle. Suah felt her breath hitch. She knew she shouldn't be there, but running away wasn't an option either. It was as if she were at the center of a storm she couldn't control. "Kang Ji-hoon," his father's firm voice echoed through the room. "Don't you see what you're risking? Your position, your legacy? Everything could collapse because of this woman." Ji-hoon stood his ground, his eyes blazing with determination. "My legacy is mine to choose, and I choose Suah." Do-hyun took a deep breath, frustrated. "You've always been stubborn, but this time you're going too far. If you insist on this, you won't have my support, or the company's," end quote. The threat hung in the air like a sharp blade about to fall. Suah looked from Ji-hoon to his father, guilt washing over her for being the cause of this battle. She had never wanted to put Ji-hoon against his family. He had worked so hard to get where he was, and now everything was hanging by a thread. "Ji-hoon, think carefully." "Suah murmured, her voice trembling. "I can't be the reason you lose everything you built." Ji-hoon turned to her, holding her hands firmly, yet with a gentleness that made her heart ache. "Don't you understand, Sue? I can rebuild everything, but I can't replace you. You are the only thing that truly matters to me." Ji-hoon's father scoffed, giving him one last disappointed look before walking out of the room. The door closed behind him with a sharp thud, leaving behind an overwhelming silence. Ji-hoon let out a long sigh and turned to Suah, whose eyes were still full of worry. "Now it's just us," he said softly, gently caressing her face, "and I will never regret this choice." The following months were turbulent. Ji-hoon had to fight to keep his position in the company, facing a wave of criticism, distrust from shareholders, and constant challenges. But he proved to everyone that he didn't rely on anyone to succeed. Suah, in turn, became his greatest supporter, proving that their love was not a weakness, but a strength. Amid tense meetings and difficult decisions, the two found refuge in each other. On exhausting nights, Ji-hoon would hold Suah's hand and whisper, "As long as I have you, I know I can face anything." And she would always smile and reply, "Then never let go of my hand." And then, in a simple yet deeply meaningful ceremony, Ji-hoon and Suah got married. Surrounded by close friends and a few company members who rooted for them, they exchanged heartfelt vows, promising to face any obstacle together. Ji-hoon, impeccably dressed in a white suit, looked at Suah as if she were the brightest star in the sky. "I promise to love, protect, and stand by your side through any storm," he declared firmly. Suah smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I promise never to let go of your hand, no matter what happens." The kiss that sealed their marriage was proof that they had won every battle together. The past or the challenges ahead didn't matter, because the future was theirs. Years later, on a quiet morning, Ji-hoon held their daughter in his arms, watching as Suah smiled at him. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the small family they had built with so much love. "I told you we would build our own path," Ji-hoon said, cradling their daughter affectionately. Suah laughed, gently touching his face. And I never doubted it. Because, in the end, true love always finds a way to win. And they had won together.